The year 2387 marked humanity's most distant expansion into the stars. The human colony of Novarian stood at the edge of wild space, a testament to human ambition and ingenuity. With its gleaming towers and sprawling research facilities, it represented the pinnacle of technological advancement. But beneath the veneer of progress, political tensions with the alien consortium grew increasingly hostile with each passing day. On Titania, one of Novarian's moons, the Astrogen Biological Research Center operated in relative isolation. The facility's reinforced walls withstood the moon's frequent electromagnetic storms, while its laboratories housed some of humanity's most brilliant scientific minds. Among them was Dr. Elias Ford, a planetary biologist whose reputation had once been unparalleled in the field. Elias stood at the observation window of his private laboratory, his weathered face illuminated by the eerie glow of Titania's plasma storms. At 45, the lines around his eyes had deepened, not just from age, but from grief. 6 months ago, his daughter Lyra had died in a laboratory accident back on Earth. The experiment had been his design, his research, and though he'd been light years away when it happened, the weight of responsibility crushed him daily. "Dr. Ford," called a voice from the laboratory entrance. "The expedition team is ready for departure." Elias turned to see his assistant, a young researcher named Talia Wright. Her eyes held a mixture of respect and concern. "I'll be there shortly," he replied, his voice hollow. "The weather conditions on the survey site are deteriorating," Talia warned. "If we delay much longer, we risk missing our window." Elias nodded absently, gathering his field equipment. The exploratory mission to an uncharted planet in the sector had been planned for months. As head xenobiologist, his presence was required, though his heart hadn't been in his work since Lyra's death. "Dr. Nakamura is questioning your fitness for this mission," Talia added hesitantly. "She's suggesting to Director Harmon that you be replaced." Elias's jaw tightened. Dr. Aiko Nakamura had been his colleague for years, and once, perhaps, something more. But since Lyra's death, their relationship had grown strained. Aiko believed his grief compromised his judgment, and perhaps she was right. "Tell Dr. Nakamura I'll meet the team at the transport," Elias said, shouldering his pack. "My fitness for duty is not her concern." The journey to the uncharted planet, designated XL-472, took 3 hours aboard the research vessel, Galileo. Throughout the trip, Elias kept to himself, reviewing data and avoiding the concerned glances of his team members. The planet below was a swirling mass of blue-green clouds, its surface largely unexplored except for preliminary drone surveys that had detected unusual energy signatures. "We're looking for anything unusual." Elias briefed the team as they prepared for descent. "Biological anomalies, geological formations that don't match our predictive models, energy readings, anything that might indicate intelligent design or technology beyond our understanding." Dr. Nakamura stood at the back of the group, arms crossed. "And what exactly are we hoping to find? Elias? Another dead end? Another excuse to push the boundaries of the federal charter?" Elias met her gaze steadily. "We're scientists. Aiko. Discovery is our purpose, regardless of what it means for politics." The tension between them was palpable as the team boarded the lander. Regulations required a minimum of 4 researchers for any planetary exploration. 2 scientists, a security officer, and a pilot. Today's team consisted of Elias, Dr. Nakamura, security officer Marcus Vega, and pilot Samira Karim. The descent through XL-472's atmosphere was turbulent, the lander buffeted by fierce winds and electrical disturbances. Samira's skilled hands kept them steady, but by the time they touched down on the planet's surface, Everyone was shaken. Life support systems green, Samira announced, running through post-landing protocols. Atmosphere toxic but not immediately lethal. Full suits required. Outside the lander's windows, XL-472 revealed itself to be a harsh landscape of jagged rock formations and shallow, steaming pools. The sky above swirled with greenish clouds that occasionally sparked with electrical discharge. "Reminds me of primordial Earth," Dr. Nakamura remarked, checking her equipment. "Before oxygen-producing organisms took hold." Elias nodded, feeling a spark of his old scientific curiosity. The drone surveys detected complex organic molecules in those pools. If we're lucky, we might witness life in its early stages. The team disembarked carefully, each step measured in the planet's slightly lower gravity. Their environmental suits provided protection against the caustic atmosphere, while built-in sensors constantly analyzed their surroundings. For the first hour, they collected samples methodically, working in pairs as protocol demanded. Elias found himself partnered with Marcus, the taciturn security officer who seemed more interested in scanning the horizon for threats than in the scientific discoveries at their feet. "You see something?" Elias asked, noticing Marcus's vigilance. "Not sure," Marcus replied, his hand resting on his pulse rifle. "Thought I saw movement near that ridge." Elias followed his gaze but saw nothing unusual. The atmospheric conditions played tricks on the eyes. "Focus on the immediate area." They continued their work, moving farther from the lander than initially planned. Elias's scanner detected an unusual energy signature emanating from a narrow ravine ahead. And despite Marcus's reservations, he insisted on investigating. "This is exactly what we came for," Elias argued. "The signature matches nothing in our database." The ravine proved difficult to navigate, its walls slick with some kind of viscous fluid that resembled oil but registered as organic in composition. At the bottom, they discovered the source of the energy readings, a small cave entrance, barely visible against the dark rock. "We should call the others," Marcus suggested, but Elias was already moving forward, drawn by scientific curiosity and something else, an inexplicable feeling he couldn't name. The cave extended only a few meters into the cliff face before opening into a small chamber. What they found inside defied explanation. At the center of the chamber stood a crystalline structure, roughly the size of a human torso, pulsing with soft blue light. Within the crystal, suspended in clear fluid, was what appeared to be an embryo, but unlike any life form Elias had ever encountered. "What the hell is that?" Marcus whispered, raising his rifle instinctively. Elias approached slowly, his scanner collecting data. "It's alive," he breathed, reading the results. Some kind of suspended animation or stasis field. The embryo was humanoid in basic shape, but with distinct differences. A slightly elongated cranium, 6-fingered appendages, and skin that seemed to shimmer with bioluminescence even through the crystal casing. "We need to report this immediately," Marcus said firmly. "This is well beyond our mission parameters." Elias barely heard him. His mind raced with possibilities. The crystal technology was far beyond human capability, suggesting an advanced civilization. But why leave an embryo alone in this desolate place? Was it abandoned, a test subject, or something more significant? Before he could voice these questions, his scanner emitted a sharp alert. "The stasis field is failing," he announced, his heart racing. "The embryo's life signs are becoming erratic." "All the more reason to get the others," Marcus insisted, but Elias knew there wasn't time. The federal charter was explicit. Alien technology was to be reported and quarantined pending full investigation. By the time authorization came through to intervene, the embryo would be dead. In that moment, Elias made a decision that would change everything. He reached into his field kit and withdrew a portable stasis container equipment meant for preserving delicate biological samples. "What are you doing?" Marcus demanded, stepping forward. "Saving a life," Elias replied simply. And before Marcus could stop him, he activated a small cutting tool and began to carefully slice through the crystalline structure. The crystal yielded surprisingly easily, almost as if designed to be opened. The moment Elias's tool penetrated the surface, the blue light intensified briefly before fading altogether. The fluid within began to drain through previously invisible channels in the base, leaving the embryo exposed to the air. Moving quickly, Elias transferred the small being to his stasis container, adjusting the settings to maintain appropriate life support. The embryo was smaller than he'd initially thought, perhaps the equivalent of a human fetus at 4 months development. "You've violated at least 6 regulations," Marcus said, his voice tight with anger. "This is a career-ending move. Dr. Ford." Elias secured the container in his pack. "Then report me when we return, but I won't let it die." A sudden tremor shook the cave, sending small rocks clattering to the floor. The remaining crystal structure began to emit a high-pitched whine, cracks spreading across its surface. "We need to move," Elias urged, already heading for the exit. "I think the stasis field was stabilizing more than just the embryo." They barely made it out of the ravine before a blinding flash erupted behind them, followed by a concussive wave that knocked them both to the ground. When Elias looked back, the ravine had partially collapsed, burying the cave entrance beneath tons of rock. "What happened?" Dr. Nakamura's voice crackled over the comm system. "We detected an energy surge. Are you all right?" "We're fine," Elias responded, exchanging a look with Marcus. "Just a localized geological event? We're returning to the lander now." Marcus stared at him, conflict evident in his eyes. After a long moment, he simply said, "You'd better know what you're doing, Dr. Ford." The return journey to the research facility on Titania was tense. Elias kept the stasis container hidden in his personal effects, bypassing the usual quarantine procedures through careful manipulation of the lab's security systems. Years of working at Astrogen had taught him the blind spots in their protocols, and grief had made him reckless in a way he'd never been before. Once in his private laboratory, Elias worked through the night, analyzing the embryo and establishing a more permanent life support system. The being was unlike anything in Astrogen's extensive xenobiology database. Humanoid, but with a genetic structure that defied conventional understanding. Its cells contained additional organelles that appeared to process energy in ways unimaginable for Earth-based life. "What are you?" Elias whispered, watching the embryo float peacefully in its new containment unit. "And why were you left behind?" Over the following weeks, Elias maintained his regular duties while secretly monitoring the alien embryo's development. It grew at an astonishing rate, its neural activity becoming increasingly complex. By the 3rd week, it had developed to what would be equivalent to a newborn human infant, though its features remained distinctly alien. Large, iridescent eyes with no visible pupils, 6-fingered hands with slight webbing, skin that shifted color subtly in response to light and temperature. Elias knew he couldn't keep his secret forever. The energy requirements for the containment unit were substantial, and his frequent late nights in the lab had already drawn attention. Dr. Nakamura had begun to watch him more closely, her scientific curiosity piqued by his sudden renewed vigor. On the 32nd day, everything changed. Elias arrived at his lab to find the containment unit's status altered. The being inside had developed to the equivalent of a human toddler, and for the first time, it was fully conscious. Watching him through the transparent barrier with unmistakable awareness. When their eyes met, Elias felt a strange sensation, a gentle pressure in his mind, like a whispered hello. He approached the unit cautiously, placing his hand against the surface. The child, for it was clearly a child now, mirrored his action. Small, six-fingered hand aligning with his five-fingered one. Hello? Elias said softly, feeling somewhat foolish for speaking aloud. The pressure in his mind returned, stronger this time, accompanied by a flood of emotions that weren't his own. Curiosity, confusion, and an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Elias made another decision then, one just as momentous as his choice on XL-472. He initiated the sequence to open the containment unit. The chamber hissed as it depressurized, the front panel sliding open. The child didn't move immediately, watching Elias with those large, iridescent eyes. Then, hesitantly, it reached out a six-fingered hand. Elias took it gently, surprised by the warmth of the child's skin. "It's all right," he said, though he knew the child couldn't understand his words. "You're safe." But perhaps understanding transcended language, because the pressure in his mind shifted, becoming a warm pulse of gratitude and trust. The child stepped out of the containment unit on unsteady legs, still holding Elias's hand for support. Standing upright, the child was about 3 feet tall, with a slender build and that same color-shifting skin that now pulsed with a soft golden hue. Its features were delicate, almost elfin, with no visible nose but rather small breathing slits, and no external ears, though it clearly responded to sounds. "You need a name," Elias said, finding himself smiling for the first time in months. A memory surfaced Lyra as a small child, fascinated by the stars, pointing to Sirius in the night sky and calling it the singing star. "Sela," he decided. "I'll call you Sela." The child's skin rippled with blue light, and Elias felt a wave of acceptance flow through their connected hands. Somehow, he knew Sila had understood and approved. That night, Elias smuggled Sela to his private quarters, transforming his sparse living space into a makeshift nursery. The child showed remarkable adaptability, quickly learning to use simple items and mimicking Elias's actions. More extraordinary was the growing mental connection between them, not quite telepathy, but a sharing of emotions and basic concepts that transcended the need for verbal language. In the days that followed, Sila's development continued at an accelerated pace. Within a week, she, for Elias had begun to think of Sila as female, though he had no real basis for gender assignment, had reached the equivalent of a human child of 5 or 6 years. She learned to dress herself in the clothes Elias provided, ate the specialized nutrient solutions he prepared, and began to understand simple spoken words. The mental connection between them strengthened as well. Elias found he could share images and concepts directly, teaching Sela about the world around her without the barrier of language. In return, Sela shared glimpses of knowledge that seemed instinctual to her species, perceptions of energy fields, an innate understanding of molecular structures, and fragments of what might have been cultural memories. But with these developments came new challenges. Keeping Sela hidden became increasingly difficult as her curiosity grew. She wanted to explore beyond the confines of Elias's quarters, to understand the world she had been born into. And Elias found himself torn between the joy of their growing bond and the constant fear of discovery. That fear was realized sooner than he had anticipated. 2 months after bringing Sela to Titania, Elias returned from his shift to find Dr. Nakamura waiting outside his quarters, her expression grim. "We need to talk, Elias," she said without preamble. "The energy fluctuations in your lab and quarters haven't gone unnoticed. Whatever you're hiding, it's drawing attention you don't want." Elias felt his heart race, but before he could formulate a response, the door to his quarters slid open, Sela stood in the doorway, her skin pulsing with anxious purple light. She looked from Elias to Dr. Nakamura, her large eyes wide with apprehension. Dr. Nakamura took an involuntary step back, her scientific training momentarily overwhelmed by surprise. "What have you done?" she whispered. In that moment, Elias knew his secret was exposed, and the full weight of his actions crashed down upon him. He had violated the federal charter, endangered his career, and potentially created an interstellar incident. But as Sila moved to his side, small hands seeking his for reassurance, he couldn't bring himself to regret it. "Come inside," he told Dr. Nakamura quietly. "I'll explain everything." The conversation that followed was the most difficult of Elias's life. He recounted the discovery on XL-472, the failing stasis field, and his decision to save the embryo. Throughout his explanation, Sela remained close to him, occasionally projecting emotional impressions that Elias had come to recognize as her way of communicating. "You realize what this means," Dr. Nakamura said when he had finished. "If the consortium discovers we have one of their children—" "We don't know she's from the consortium," Elias interrupted. "The technology in that cave didn't match any known consortium designs." "It doesn't matter," Dr. Nakamura insisted. "Any alien life form falls under the jurisdiction of the federal charter. You were required to report this immediately." "And then what?" Elias demanded. "Sela would have become a research subject, locked away in some high-security facility while politicians and military leaders decided her fate." Dr. Nakamura's expression softened slightly as she looked at Sela, who was watching their exchange with evident concern. "She's beautiful," she admitted, "and clearly intelligent, but that doesn't change the facts. You've put yourself in an impossible position." "Elias." "I know," he acknowledged, "but I couldn't let her die." Dr. Nakamura was silent for a long moment, her scientific curiosity warring with her duty to the research facility. Finally, she sighed. "You have 48 hours to decide what you're going to do. After that, I'll have no choice but to report this to Director Harmon." It wasn't much time, but it was more than Elias had hoped for. "Thank you, Aiko." After Dr. Nakamura left, Elias sat heavily on the edge of his bed, the reality of his situation weighing on him. Sela climbed up beside him, her skin now a concerned blue-gray. "It's all right," he told her, though he knew she could sense his anxiety. "We'll figure something out." That night, as Sela slept curled beside him, Elias lay awake planning their escape. He had savings, contacts in the outer colonies who might help them disappear. But he was under no illusions about the difficulty of such a path. Fugitives from Astrogen would be hunted relentlessly, especially when the reason involved alien technology and a living specimen. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft glow emanating from Sila. Her skin had begun to pulse with a deep blue light, more intense than he had ever seen before. As he watched in concern, she sat up suddenly, her eyes wide and unseeing. "Sela," he whispered, reaching for her, "what's wrong?" Instead of responding to his touch as she usually did, Sela slipped from the bed and moved to the center of the room. "There." She raised her hands, and to Elias's astonishment, a holographic display materialized in the air between her palms, intricate symbols and diagrams in a language he couldn't comprehend. "How are you doing this?" he asked, though he knew she couldn't answer in words. The holographic display expanded, filling the room with swirling patterns of light. Elias recognized star charts, though the configurations were unfamiliar. One section of the display brightened, zooming in on a specific star system. A pulse of light marked one planet in particular world with twin moons that Elias didn't recognize from any human star chart. Is that your home? He asked softly. Sela turned to him, the hologram fading as her concentration shifted. The pressure in his mind returned, stronger than ever, carrying with it not just emotions but complex concepts. Home. Family. Return. Choose. You want to go home? Elias asked, trying to understand. Sela shook her head, approaching him with deliberate steps. She placed one six-fingered hand on his chest, over his heart, and the other on her own. The mental impression changed. You. Me. Family. Choose. Understanding dawned slowly. You're asking me to go with you, Elias realized, to leave Earth space entirely. Sila nodded, her skin glowing with hopeful gold. Then she gestured to the space where the hologram had been, and Elias received another impression. Others coming. Seeking. Beacon activated. The implication sent a chill through him. The crystal cavit was a beacon? Your people know you're here? Another nod, more solemn this time. Soon. Elias ran a hand through his hair, trying to process this new information. If Sila's people were coming, whoever they were, it changed everything. This was no longer just about his decision to save an alien embryo. It was potentially first contact with an unknown species. We need to tell someone, he said, thinking aloud. The proper authorities, not just Astrogen. Sila's reaction was immediate and visceral. Her skin flashed crimson with alarm, and the mental impression she projected was one of danger and betrayal. Whatever her species' experience with authority had been, it clearly wasn't positive. All right, Elias soothed, taking her small hands in his. No authorities, but we need help. Sila, I can't protect you alone, not if your people are coming. The next morning, Elias sought out Dr. Nakamura in her laboratory. She looked up from her work, surprise evident in her expression. I didn't expect to see you until the deadline, she remarked. Things have changed, Elias said quietly. Sila showed me something last night. Her people are coming, they know she's here. Dr. Nakamura set down her equipment carefully. Explain. Elias described the holographic display, the star charts, and Sila's mental communication. As he spoke, he could see Dr. Nakamura's scientific mind engaging with the problem, analyzing the implications. If what you're saying is true, she said when he had finished, this is unprecedented. First contact with a new species, initiated by a child who seems to have been deliberately left for us to find, Elias added. The crystal structure, the beacon, it feels like a test of some kind. Dr. Nakamura frowned. Or a trap. Have you considered that possibility? That this child might be the vanguard of something more sinister? The thought had occurred to Elias, but he had dismissed it. His connection with Sila felt too genuine, too innocent for deception. I don't believe that's the case, he said firmly. But even if it were, wouldn't it be better to approach this with diplomacy rather than fear? Diplomacy requires official channels, Dr. Nakamura pointed out, which means reporting Sila's existence to the Federal Council. And what would they do with her? Elias challenged. Lock her away, dissect her, use her as leverage against her own people. You know as well as I do how the military faction would react to this news. Dr. Nakamura couldn't deny the truth of his words. The current political climate was tense, with the military faction gaining influence within the Federal Council. Their policy toward the alien consortium was one of suspicion and containment. A new alien species would likely be treated with even greater caution. What are you proposing then? She asked finally. Help us, Elias said simply. Help me understand what Sila is, what she can do. Help me prepare for contact with her people. And in return, you'll be part of something historic, peaceful first contact with a new species. It was an appeal to her scientific curiosity, and they both knew it. But it was also an offer of trust, something that had been missing between them since Lyra's death. After a long moment, Dr. Nakamura nodded. "I'll help you, but we do this my way, carefully, methodically, with proper documentation. If this goes wrong, I want evidence of our good intentions." The following week saw a transformation in Elias's quarters. With Dr. Nakamura's help, they converted the space into a makeshift laboratory and learning center. They documented Scylla's rapid development, her growing linguistic abilities, and the expanding range of her mental projections. Scylla thrived under their combined attention. She began to speak simple words in English, though her vocal apparatus struggled with certain sounds. More impressive was her ability to absorb information, scientific concepts, historical events, cultural norms through the mental connection she shared with both Elias and, increasingly, Dr. Nakamura. Her neural plasticity is remarkable, Dr. Nakamura observed one evening, reviewing the day's test results. She processes information at least 5 times faster than a human child of comparable development. Elias nodded, watching as Scylla manipulated a holographic puzzle he had designed to test her spatial reasoning. And her abilities go beyond cognitive functions. Have you noticed how the ambient temperature changes when she's concentrating? I think she's manipulating energy fields at a molecular level, which raises questions about her species' evolutionary path. Dr. Nakamura mused. Such abilities would provide significant advantages in certain environments. Their scientific collaboration had rekindled something of their old friendship, though the shadow of Lyra's death still lingered between them. Elias found himself grateful for Dr. Nakamura's presence, not just for her expertise, but for the simple human connection he had been missing since his self-imposed isolation. As the days passed, however, a new concern emerged. Security protocols at Astrogen had been heightened following reports of unusual energy signatures detected in the vicinity of Titania. Director Harmon had ordered increased patrols and enhanced scanning procedures, making it harder for Elias and Dr. Nakamura to work with Scylla undetected. "They're looking for something specific," Dr. Nakamura reported after a facility-wide briefing. Harmon mentioned quantum fluctuations consistent with advanced propulsion systems. "I think they've detected Scylla's people approaching." Elias felt a mixture of anticipation and dread. "How much time do we have?" 8 days, maybe less, Dr. Nakamura estimated. "And there's something else. A consortium delegation arrived this morning. Officially, they're here for trade negotiations, but the timing is suspicious." The news sent a chill through Elias. If both Astrogen and the consortium were aware of approaching alien vessels, the situation was more volatile than he had realized. Scylla, sensing his anxiety, moved to his side, her skin shifting to a concerned lavender. "We need to move up our timetable." Elias decided, if Scylla's people are coming, we need to be ready to meet them on our terms, not Astrogen's. Dr. Nakamura looked skeptical. "And how exactly do you propose we do that? The facility is on high alert, and we have no way of communicating with an unknown alien species." "We have Scylla," Elias pointed out. "She's the key to all of this." That night, after Dr. Nakamura had returned to her own quarters, Elias sat with Scylla, trying to convey the urgency of their situation through their mental connection. To his surprise, Scylla seemed to understand more than he had expected. "I'm coming soon," she projected, along with an image of sleek vessels approaching Titania. "The choosing." "What is the choosing?" Elias asked, focusing on the concept in his mind. Scylla's response was complex, a series of images and emotions that Elias struggled to interpret. He saw beings similar to Scylla but adult, engaged in what appeared to be a ritual. A child, perhaps Scylla herself, being presented to different adults, each offering something different: knowledge, power, protection. You were sent here to choose, Elias realized slowly. To choose who among us would be worthy of what? Contact? Alliance? Scylla nodded, her skin pulsing with bright gold approval. You chose me, she projected. Now I choose you. The simplicity of her statement belied its profound implications. Elias had saved Scylla's life, raised her as his own. And now she was offering him, and by extension, humanity, a connection to her people. It was a responsibility he hadn't asked for but could not refuse. It will need to leave the facility, he told her, formulating a plan. Find a place where we can meet your people without interference. Scylla's response was unexpected. Rather than agreement, she projected an image of the laboratory, specifically a secure section that housed Astrogen's most advanced communication equipment. You want to use the facility's systems? Elias asked, surprised. That's the most heavily guarded area in Astrogen. Scylla's mental impression was firm, necessary, signal strong, others here. Elias frowned, considering the risks. Breaking into the secure communications lab would almost certainly trigger alarms, bringing security down on them before they could accomplish anything. But if Scylla believed it was necessary, we'll need help, he decided, and Dr. Nakamura and maybe others. The next morning, Elias shared Scylla's plan with Dr. Nakamura, who reacted with predictable skepticism. This is madness, Elias, she said flatly. Even if we could access the communication lab without being caught, which we can't, what exactly does Scylla intend to do there? I don't know precisely, Elias admitted, but she seems certain it's the only way to contact her people properly. Dr. Nakamura paced the small confines of Elias's quarters, weighing options. The security systems are designed to prevent exactly this kind of unauthorized access. We would need someone with administrative clearance. Like Director Harmon, Elias suggested. Who would never agree to this, Dr. Nakamura countered. Scylla, who had been quietly observing their exchange, suddenly stepped forward. She placed one hand on Dr. Nakamura's arm, her skin glowing with a soft blue light. The mental connection established instantly. Elias could tell by the way Dr. Nakamura's eyes widened in surprise. Whatever Scylla communicated must have been compelling, because when the connection broke, Dr. Nakamura's expression had changed from skepticism to determination. It will need a distraction, she said. All business now. Something to draw security away from the communication lab, and we'll need to move quickly tonight, before the facility goes into full lockdown. Elias raised an eyebrow. What did she show you? Dr. Nakamura's gaze was distant, as if still processing what she had experienced. The future, she said simply, or at least one possibility of it. The plan they devised was risky but not impossible. Dr. Nakamura would use her authority to access the environmental control systems, triggering a false containment breach in the biological storage area far from the communication lab, but serious enough to require immediate attention from security. During the ensuing chaos, Elias would escort Scylla to the lab, where she would do whatever it was she needed to do. I still don't understand what she hopes to accomplish, Dr. Nakamura confessed as they finalized the details. But I believe her intentions are peaceful. Elias nodded, feeling a mixture of pride and apprehension. She's trying to prevent a conflict, not start one. I'm certain of that. As night fell over the Astrogen facility, the three conspirators prepared for their mission. Elias had provided Scylla with a researcher's uniform, modified to fit her smaller frame. With the hood pulled up to shadow her distinctive features, she might pass for a human child at a distance long enough to reach the communication lab, at least. Remember, Dr. Nakamura instructed as she prepared to leave. You'll have approximately 15 minutes from the time the alarm sounds until security realizes it's a false alert. Make them count. Elias checked his access card, which Dr. Nakamura had reprogrammed with temporary administrative privileges. We'll be ready. The wait was excruciating. Elias and Sila sat in tense silence, watching the chronometer count down to the agreed time. When the facility-wide alarm finally blared, Elias felt a surge of adrenaline. "Now," he said, taking Sila's hand, "stay close to me." The corridors were already emptying as staff responded to the emergency protocols, moving away from the alleged containment breach. Elias and Sila moved in the opposite direction, keeping to the shadows when possible and walking with purposeful strides when not. They encountered few obstacles. Most security personnel had been dispatched to handle the crisis. Just as planned, the communication lab was located in the central hub of the facility, its entrance protected by a biometric scanner and reinforced doors. Elias approached confidently, swiping his reprogrammed access card and pressing his palm to the scanner. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then the scanner flashed green, and the doors slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, the lab was a marvel of technology, banks of quantum processors, holographic interfaces, and the massive transmission array that allowed Astrogen to communicate with Earth and other colonies despite the vast distances involved. "What now?" Elias asked as the doors closed behind them. Sila moved to the central control station, her small hands hovering over the interface. To Elias's amazement, the system responded to her presence, displays flickering to life without physical contact. Her skin began to glow with that same intense blue light he had seen before, and the room's lighting dimmed in response, as if the power were being redirected. The holographic display at the center of the room expanded, forming a three-dimensional star map similar to the one Sila had shown him in his quarters. But this was more detailed, more precise, and it showed multiple vessels approaching Titania from different vectors. Some bore the distinctive configuration of consortium ships, while others were completely unfamiliar. "They're all coming here," Elias realized. "Both the consortium and your people." Sila nodded, her concentration unbroken as she manipulated the display. The unfamiliar ship's sleek, organic-looking vessels that seemed to shimmer even in holographic form were marked with pulsing blue light. The consortium ships flashed red, their trajectories suggesting intercepting courses. "They're going to confront each other," Elias said, alarm rising in his voice. "Sila, if the consortium attacks your people..." But Sila had already moved beyond the star map. Her hands passed through the holographic interface, reaching for the physical components of the transmission array, where her fingers touched the technology. Blue light spread like living circuitry, transforming the human-made equipment into something else entirely. The lab systems responded with warnings, automatic safety protocols engaging as unexpected energy patterns coursed through the sensitive equipment. Elias moved to override them, his fingers flying over the nearest control panel to keep the system online. Whatever Sila was doing, she needed time to complete it. "A security override in progress," announced the facility's AI in a calm voice. "Unauthorized modifications detected in Communication Lab Alpha. Security team has been notified." Elias cursed under his breath. Their window was closing faster than anticipated. "Sila, we need to hurry." Sila didn't respond verbally, but the blue light emanating from her intensified, spreading throughout the room until every surface seemed to glow with the same unearthly radiance. The transmission array hummed with power, its dish adjusting position without any command from the control systems. And then, abruptly, everything stopped. The blue light receded, the systems returned to normal operation, and Sila turned to face Elias with an expression of serene accomplishment. "Done," She said aloud one of the few spoken words she had mastered. Before Elias could ask what exactly she had done, the lab doors slid open. He turned, expecting to face security officers, but instead found Dr. Nakamura. Her face flushed with exertion. "We need to go," she said urgently. "Security has figured out the containment breach was a diversion. They're sweeping the facility section by section." Elias looked to Sila, who nodded her agreement. Whatever she had needed to do was complete. They followed Dr. Nakamura into the corridor, moving quickly but trying not to draw attention. The facility was still in a state of controlled chaos, which worked to their advantage as they made their way back toward Elias's quarters. They had almost reached safety when disaster struck. Rounding a corner, they came face to face with Director Harmon and two security officers. The director's eyes widened in surprise, then narrowed as they fell on Sila. "Dr. Ford, Dr. Nakamura," he said, his voice dangerously calm. "Would you care to explain what's going on? And who or what is this?" Elias stepped protectively in front of Sila. "Director Harmon, I can explain." "I'm sure you can," the director interrupted. "And you'll have ample opportunity to do so during a formal inquiry. For now, all of you will come with me to security containment." The security officers moved forward, hands on their weapons. Elias tensed, prepared to resist if necessary. But before anyone could act, the facility's emergency alert system activated again, this time with a different tone. One Elias recognized as the external threat warning. "Director Harmon to Command Center," came an urgent voice over the facility-wide communication system. "Unidentified vessels have entered Titania orbit. Multiple contacts. Non-consortium configurations." Director Harmon's face paled. He glanced at Sila with new understanding. "What have you done?" he demanded. Before Elias could respond, Sila stepped forward, her skin glowing with that now familiar blue light. She raised one hand toward the ceiling, and to everyone's astonishment, a holographic image materialized in the air above them, a real-time view of the space around Titania, as if seen from one of the facility's external cameras. The image showed exactly what the alert had described: multiple vessels in Titania orbit, their designs unlike anything in human or consortium records. They were beautiful in their alienness, organic curves and flowing lines rather than the angular, functional designs of human ships or the crystalline structures favored by the consortium. "They're here," Elias said softly, "come Sila's people." As if in response to his words, the holographic image shifted, zooming in on one vessel in particular larger than the others, its surface pulsing with the same blue light that emanated from Sila. A beam of energy extended from the ship toward Titania's surface, directly toward the Astrogen facility. "They're scanning us," Director Harmon said, his military background evident in his assessment. "Preparing for attack." "No," Elias corrected, understanding flowing through his connection with Sila. "They're establishing contact. Sila modified our communication array to receive their transmission, as if to prove his point. The facility's lights flickered, and every display screen, holographic projector, and communication device simultaneously activated. The image that appeared was of a being clearly of Sila's species but adult, tall and slender, with the same iridescent skin and large, expressive eyes. When it spoke, its voice seemed to resonate directly in their minds rather than through the facility's audio systems. "A people of Earth," the being said, its mental voice carrying a depth of emotion that transcended language barriers. "We greet you in peace. The child you have nurtured has chosen, and we honor that choice." Director Harmon looked from the image to Sila, his expression a mixture of confusion and awe. "What choice?" he asked. Sila moved to Elias's side, taking his hand. The mental impression she projected was clear enough for all of them to perceive. Family, bond, Future. The alien being nodded, as if hearing Sila's response. For generations we have watched the younger races seeking those worthy of alliance. Our children are sent as choosers to find those with compassion, wisdom, and courage. Elias Ford showed all these qualities when he saved our child, defying his own laws to preserve life. Director Harmon seemed to struggle with this information. You're saying this was all a test? That you abandoned a child just to see if we would save it? Not abandoned, the being corrected gently. Entrusted. The stasis pod was designed to sustain life indefinitely until found by a suitable guardian. Had none appeared, the pod would have recalled itself to our vessels. Elias thought back to the crystal cave, the failing stasis field. Had it really been failing? Or had it been responding to his presence, evaluating his potential as a guardian? The thought was both unsettling and humbling. And now, Dr. Nakamura asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her caution. What happens now that your chooser has made her selection? The alien being's expression shifted to something approximating a smile. Now we offer alliance not just with your Astrogen facility, but with all Earth-descended humans. We bring knowledge, technology, and protection in exchange for cultural exchange and mutual growth. Before anyone could respond to this extraordinary offer, a new alert sounded, this one with the harsh, pulsing tone that indicated imminent danger. Consortium vessels have altered course, reported the facility's AI. Weapon systems active and locked on unidentified ships. The holographic view shifted to show the approaching consortium fleet a dozen warships in attack formation, their crystalline structures gleaming in the light of Titania's plasma storms. They were still distant but closing rapidly, their intentions clear. The consortium fears us, the alien being explained, its mental voice tinged with sadness. They have encountered our kind before and misunderstood our intentions. They believe we come to conquer rather than connect. Director Harmon straightened, years of military training asserting themselves. We need to evacuate the facility. If those ships engage in combat in Titania orbit. There is another option, the alien interrupted. The chooser has formed a bond with Elias Ford. Through him, we can establish a temporary PISA demonstration of our intentions that even the consortium will recognize. All eyes turned to Elias, who felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. What do I need to do? The answer came not from the alien transmission but from Sila, who tugged gently at his hand, leading him toward the nearest laboratory. Inside, she guided him to a clear space, then turned to face him with solemn determination. "The blood bond," she said aloud, her pronunciation careful and deliberate. She extended her right arm, palm up, and with her left hand made a small cut across her palm using one sharp fingernail. Blue-tinged fluid welled from the wound. Elias understood immediately. "A blood ritual," he said, looking to the alien transmission for confirmation. The being nodded. "Our people form bonds through the sharing of genetic material. It is how we recognize family, how we establish trust. The consortium knows of this practice. They will recognize its significance." Dr. Nakamura stepped forward, scientific caution reasserting itself. "We have no idea if your biochemistry is compatible with human physiology. This could be dangerous, even fatal. The child has been analyzing human biology since her awakening," the alien countered. "She has prepared her system for compatibility. There is risk, but it is minimal." Elias looked down at Sila, whose expression was one of absolute trust. He thought of Lyra, of his failure to protect her, and of the second chance he had been given with this extraordinary child from the stars. Whatever the risk, he could not refuse her now. "I'll do it," he said firmly, rolling up his sleeve. Director Harmon moved as if to intervene, but Dr. Nakamura placed a restraining hand on his arm. "Let him choose," she said quietly. "That's what all of this has been about, choices freely made." With a steadiness that surprised even himself, Elias drew a small scalpel from a nearby equipment tray and made a shallow cut across his palm. Red blood welled from the wound, a stark contrast to the blue-tinged fluid on Sila's palm. Sila stepped closer, her eyes holding his in an unwavering gaze. She raised her injured hand, and Elias mirrored the gesture, pressing their palms together in a universal gesture of connection. The sensation that followed defied description, where their blood mingled. A soft glow emanated neither the red of human blood nor the blue of Sila's, but a vibrant purple that seemed to pulse with life. The glow spread up Elias's arm, across his chest, and throughout his body. It wasn't painful, but it was intense, a feeling of being unmade and remade in the span of heartbeats. With the physical sensation came a mental expansion. The connection he had shared with Sila deepened and broadened, becoming a bridge not just between the two of them, but extending outward to the ships in orbit. Through Sila, Elias could sense the presence of her people, thousands of minds linked in a vast network of thought and emotion, and beyond them, distant but approaching, the crystalline consciousness of the consortium alien in a different way. Rigid and hierarchical, where Sila's people were fluid and communal. "They can sense the bond," Sila whispered, her mental voice suddenly clear and articulate in Elias's mind. "They know what it means." The holographic display confirmed her words. The consortium vessels had slowed their approach, weapon systems still active but no longer targeting the alien ships. Instead, they had established a perimeter, maintaining distance while clearly assessing the situation. A new transmission cut through the facility's communication systems, this one bearing the distinctive harmonic patterns of consortium technology. "Astrogen facility," came a voice that seemed to be composed of multiple tones speaking in unison. "This is Executor Calthar of the Consortium Diplomatic Fleet. We detect a blood bond with the Luminari. Explain your position." Director Harmon looked to Elias, who was still connected to Sila by their joined hands. "Luminari?" he questioned. "My people," Sila explained, her mental voice carrying to all present. "We who carry the light of connection." Elias stepped forward, feeling strength flow through the bond. "Executor Calthar," he addressed the consortium transmission. "I am Dr. Elias Ford of the Astrogen Research Facility. I have formed a blood bond with a Luminari child named Sila, who came to us seeking connection and understanding. We stand as intermediaries between your peoples, in the hope of peace." There was a long pause, during which the tension in the room was palpable. Then the consortium voice returned, its tone slightly altered. "The bond is recognized. We will meet with representatives of humanity and the Luminari to discuss terms of mutual coexistence. Prepare to receive our delegation." The transmission ended, and Elias felt a wave of relief wash through him. He looked down at Sila, whose skin now pulsed with joyful golden light. Through their connection, he sensed her satisfaction and pride emotions mirrored by the Luminari in orbit. You planned this," he realized. "All of it, the beacon, the bond, even the consortium's arrival." Sila's mental response held a hint of mischief. Not planned, hoped, choices freely made, paths freely taken. In the days that followed, the Astrogen facility became the center of an unprecedented diplomatic summit. Representatives from Earth, the consortium, and the Luminari gathered to establish the framework for a new interstellar alliance. Director Harmon, initially skeptical, had become a vocal advocate for peaceful cooperation after witnessing the power of the blood bond. Dr. Nakamura found herself at the forefront of scientific exchange, her expertise in xenobiology making her an ideal liaison between human researchers and their alien counterparts. The Luminari shared knowledge freely, while the consortium, traditionally secretive, began to open their vast archives in limited exchanges. As for Elias and Scylla, they stood at the center of it all, living proof that connection could transcend species, biology, and the vast emptiness of space. The blood bond had changed them both in subtle ways. Elias found his senses enhanced, his perception of the world around him deeper and more nuanced. Scylla's development accelerated further, her understanding of human culture and language approaching that of an adult despite her childlike appearance. One evening, as the diplomatic talks wound down for the day, Elias found Scylla on the observation deck, watching the swirling plasma storms that perpetually surrounded Titania. Her skin rippled with thoughtful blue-green hues as she tracked the patterns of energy. "Beautiful, isn't it?" Elias said, joining her at the viewport. Scylla nodded, leaning slightly against him in a gesture that had become familiar and comforting, like the currents of thought between minds. She projected, chaotic, but purposeful. Elias smiled, still amazed by the poetic nature of her mental communication. "The talks are going well," he observed, "better than anyone expected." "Because of you," Scylla responded, "yet your compassion showed the way." "Our compassion," Elias corrected gently. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Scylla turned to face him fully, her large eyes reflecting the stormlight. "What happens now?" she asked, a question that had been lingering between them since the summit began. The Luminari had offered Elias a position of significant authority within their society, something akin to an ambassador, but deeper, more integral to their communal structure. The role would require him to leave Earth space, to travel with the Luminari fleet as they continued their journey of connection throughout the galaxy. "I've been thinking about that," Elias admitted. "The Luminari's offer is extraordinary, but I'm not sure I'm meant to be a diplomat or a leader." Scylla's skin pulsed with curious lavender. "What are you meant to be?" Elias considered the question carefully. Since Lyra's death, he had been adrift, his scientific career providing structure but not purpose. Finding Scylla had changed that, giving him not just responsibility but a renewed sense of meaning. But it wasn't politics or power that called to him, it was exploration, discovery, the journey itself. "A teacher, perhaps," he said finally. "A guide, someone who helps you understand the universe and your place in it, just as you've helped me understand mine." Scylla's response was immediate and joyful, a burst of golden light that seemed to fill the observation deck. "Together," she projected, the concept carrying all the weight of a solemn vow, exploring, learning, family. "Together," Elias agreed, feeling a peace he hadn't known in years. "The universe is vast, and we've only just begun to understand it." Through their bond, he sensed Scylla's excitement at the prospect not just of exploring physical space, but of discovering new connections, new forms of life and consciousness throughout the galaxy. And beneath that excitement, a profound gratitude for the choice he had made on that distant, unnamed planet, when he had decided to save a life rather than follow protocol. As they stood watching the plasma storms, Elias reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point, from grief and isolation to connection and purpose, from the confines of human understanding to the boundless possibilities of interspecies communion. It wasn't the path he had envisioned for himself, but standing here with his adopted alien child, he couldn't imagine a better one. "Oh, forever," Scylla projected softly, her small hand finding his, "by your side." "Oh, forever," Elias agreed, And in that moment, the word didn't seem like a burden or a limitation, but a promise, a journey without end through the stars they both called home.